What's going on, guys? Welcome to Beyond Politics. This, of course, is an in-depth conversation where we bring our perspective to relevant political topics of the day. I'm your host, Jared, and with me, as always, is Seth. And today we're going to be talking about the James Comey testimonies, hearings, whatever. It took the media by storm.
Finally.
All last week.
A little bit.
Yeah. Before we start, if you're wondering why there's a bathing suit hanging up in the background of Seth, it is because he is on vacation right now, and we decided that a little bit of America is better than no America at all. So, hence.
And politics do not wait for me to get off of vacation.
Exactly. How rude of them. But yeah, like we said, the James Comey hearings, this is a big story. It's been going on for a while. All the mainstream media outlets actually broadcasted it live, which has pretty much never been done before with hearings.
It was huge,
but it was a really big deal. And honestly, I'm fine with that because I think it's good for people to have watched it, and I watched the whole thing. I listened to it while I was at work, and I think it's important for people to have listened to it to hear what he had to say and what was actually going on.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the conclusion of the testimony on Thursday, there was basically three big headlines, three main things, but three main ones, and I'll talk through them. So one of them is that Loretta Lynch pressured James Comey when he was the FBI director to call the Hillary email investigation a matter instead of an investigation. That's a pretty big news story. Another big news story that came out is that Trump, in a private conversation with James Comey, said that I hope you can see your way in letting Michael Flynn go with the Michael Flynn investigation. And then probably the biggest story is that Comey said that Trump was never personally under investigation by the FBI and that Trump never told him personally to stop the investigation.
That was the biggest for me, I think.
That is a big one. And even quite the opposite happened with that. So we're going to kind of run through and talk about, we're going to show some videos, some highlights of the hearings. And then also it's interesting how, I don't think it changed anybody's minds, really, in the end. If you're on the left and you think that Trump obstructed justice, then you're going to still think that coming out of the hearing. And if you're on the right and you think there's nothing there and it's all just a bunch of smoke, you're still going to think that coming out of the hearing. This is kind of a picture just displaying that. You have MSNBC and Fox News showing completely different headlines on the exact same part of the hearing. So you have MSNBC saying that Comey said, "I saw Trump's Flynn request as a directive," and then you have Fox News saying, "The president did not order me to let the Flynn probe go." And the funny thing is that both James Comey said both of these things, but it's just what you want to pull out and what you want to cover. But
it's really unfortunate because I think a lot of people. And I was never, I don't think, that naive to think that this would just clear the air completely. Mm-hmm. But I am very surprised at how little it cleared the air.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. And for me, I think it absolutely cleared the air if President Trump obstructed justice or not. I think I think there's a clear answer to that, which is no. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Does that mean that Trump is completely exonerated and he didn't do anything wrong or stupid? No, it doesn't, actually, because he definitely did. But does it mean that he did anything criminal? And I think that was something that this testimony really spoke to. And so what you have, one of the biggest stories, like we talked about, Comey confirmed that President Trump was never personally under investigation. He said that in the statement released ahead of time before the hearings. He said, quote, that we were not investigating him personally, him referring to the president. And then, so that kind of backs up what President Trump had said for, I think, a couple months now. He said that Comey told him privately 3 times that he wasn't personally under investigation.
Right.
So that confirms that.
Of course, the news media wouldn't listen to Trump.
Well, no, they wouldn't say that. And Comey wouldn't come out and say it either.
Right. Which kind of sucks, but I also understand
his reasoning for it. Yeah, his reasoning that he said is that he doesn't want to have to, if Trump ever did become the product of the investigation, he wouldn't want to have to come and double back on it, like what he did with Hillary Clinton during her investigation when he said she was cleared, and then he doubled back and said, wait, no, we've reopened it again. He wanted to avoid that. I think before we move on, I think there's no questioning that James Comey has been put in a very hard place as the FBI director.
I feel bad for him.
I feel bad for him. Do I think that he could have handled it better? Sure, but then again, I don't know everything he knows. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. There's hindsight. I do think that he did what he believed was best at the time. But so here's a line of questioning from Marco Rubio that I think really kind of cleared the air a lot. Here's kind of video of that exchange and what happened.
On a number of occasions here, you bring up, let's talk now about the general Russia investigation, okay? In page 6 of your testimony, you say, the first thing you say is, he asked what we could do to, quote unquote, lift the cloud, the general Russia investigation, and you responded that we were investigating the matter as quickly as we could and that there would be great benefit if we didn't find anything to having done the work well. And he agreed. He reemphasized the problems it was causing him, but he agreed. So in essence, the president agreed with your statement that it would be great if we could have an investigation, all the facts came out, and we found nothing. So he agreed that that would be ideal, but this cloud is still messing up my ability to do the rest of my agenda. Is that an accurate assessment of?
Yes, sir. He actually went farther than that. He said, and if some of my satellites did something wrong, it'd be good to find that out.
Well, that's the second part, and that is the satellites. He said if one of my satellites, I imagine by that he meant some of the other people surrounding his campaign did something wrong, it would be great to know that as well.
Yes, sir. That's what he said.
So are those the only two instances in which that sort of back and forth happened, where the president was basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's okay, do the Russia investigation. I hope it all comes out. I have nothing to do with anything Russia. It'd be great if it all came out, if people around me were doing things that were wrong.
Yes, as I recorded it accurately there, that was the sentiment he was expressing. Yes, sir.
So,
All right, so this alone completely destroys the narrative that Trump was correlating with the Russians throughout the entire election cycle, and then that he fired James Comey because James Comey was just so close during the FBI investigation that Trump just couldn't stand it and he had to fire him. This completely destroys that narrative. It came from the mouth of James Comey himself. President Trump never asked him to directly stop the Russian investigation. He actually went further and said, if any of my satellites, meaning, people in my administration, were correlated with it, will you let me know so that, I can deal with it and get rid of them appropriately. So I think that's huge.
Yep, that is a big deal.
That's clearly
and
a big
I think
deal.
that should have been headline news right there. Unfortunately, you didn't always see it popping up.
Yeah, of course it's not. But instead, what they decided to go with, or a lot of media outlets decided to go with, is the matter of Michael Flynn.
Oof.
Yeah. So now this is a lapse of judgment for sure, to say the least, on the president's part. So basically what happened is that he was in a meeting with the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, and the FBI director, and he asked the Attorney General to leave, and he wanted to have a private conversation with James Comey about Michael Flynn. And in that meeting, he said, quote, "I hope that you can see yourself dropping the Michael Flynn investigation. Michael Flynn's a good guy." In which James Comey replied, "Michael Flynn is a good guy." So I think that's an interesting exchange, and Comey talks about how he took that as a direct order from the president, but then later in questioning, people were talking to him, and James Comey said, no, it's not a direct order. However, he perceived it that way. And a lot of people are saying, look, if you're in a private conversation and your boss says, hey, I hope you can figure out a way to do this, most people would take that as a direct order. Yes, but then is the president really the boss of the FBI, because the FBI is supposed to be independent, but yet he can also fire him? So that's where it really becomes kind of how you perceive something to be true. But is that evidence that Trump did do it? It's not. I'm sorry. It's just
I don't think it's solid enough.
It's not
evidence.
solid
It
enough
could be.
evidence in a court of law, really, I don't think, to place criminal charges.
I would agree with that, and I think that's a rational way to perceive it, because it is so murky.
It's
super it's like
murky.
Oh, I feel like it was this way, and insinuation. It's like it's something that you really can't nail down as a definitive. Yes, he told me to do this, because he didn't do that. But what'd you feel he meant with it? It's so just I don't know.
It's super gray. Gray, but it's crazy because the whole Loretta Lynch thing then comes into play, where Comey said that Loretta Lynch had a meeting with him and asked him to not call the Hillary investigation an investigation, but instead to call it a matter. So here's the thing. If you're going to say that is putting pressure on an investigation and trying to stop an investigation, or obstruction of justice. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Obstruction of justice. Yeah. Then you have to say the same thing with President Trump, what he was doing with Flynn. Or if you're going to say that that's not a big deal, if you're on the left and you totally ignored that story, but then you're saying, oh, Trump totally obstructed justice with Michael Flynn, that's just, there has to be some what consistency, right? There has to be a certain
Yeah.
level of consistency that you have to have. And I think that it's very clear that both of them were pressuring the other person to drop the investigation. But with Loretta Lynch, she straight up asked Comey to call it a matter instead of an investigation, whereas Trump said, I hope you can do this. He's a good guy, which he then repeated on the media all the time. Like, he came out and
he's a
his
good
same
guy.
line. I can very easily see Trump just not knowing the position that he's in and just being like, hey, he's a good guy, can you let it go, kind of thing. But then again, he should definitely know that, and it's really dumb of him to do that as a president in a one-on-one meeting.
Yes.
Another big story that came out, people were talking about, James Comey said that President Trump is a liar when he was talking about the FBI losing credibility in James Comey. Now, people are taking this as fact. This is just James Comey's opinion. It's not that he didn't prove that Trump is a liar there at all. That's just James Comey's opinion. So I think that's important to say, because a lot of people are saying that, oh, well, see, even Comey said under oath that Trump's a liar. Well, it's his opinion, so it's not proving that Trump's a liar, even though you can prove that fairly easily. But with that being said, man, I mean, what do you think? What do you think about the hearings? Did it clear the air at all? What's gonna happen in the future?
I think the only thing that's clear is that both sides are gonna forever
Double down.
There's not gonna be a conclusion to this unless straight up we find hard evidence, which I just don't think, because I think that this administration, there's just a lot of sketchy stuff, and I don't necessarily think that that's criminal. And I think that if we would have this, because this is a very, like, this administration is in the news all the time. Everyone's focused on them. Every little thing they do gets on the news. So it's like they're very in scrutiny a lot. And so I think if we saw this in other administrations, we would also see that they are also very sketchy. But I just can't help but feel that it is very sketchy, but also that I don't think that there's anything criminal, nothing in this testimony, in this hearing, proved to me one way or the other. I don't think that. I think it's good that we get more information, but I think it's interesting because, like we said earlier, I do think Comey has been put in a really crappy position, honestly, and I think it's pretty fascinating that when we were talking, he remembers every discussion he had with Trump, and he wrote down the exact talk, but he did not do that with Obama. And I do think that there is an aura around Trump that is a little, everyone's kind of on edge, and I don't think that's bad. I think it's more transparency and more like solid of what exactly we said is not bad, but it's at the same time, I'm like, it's kind of interesting that Comey went ahead and did this, and he has it ready basically for this hearing. There's something I think there.
And
but dude, this just made me hate the mainstream media, man. Like,
even more.
Everybody was screwing it so hard for their narrative and just ignoring parts of it completely and focusing it on one piece. And it was just like, why can't you just talk about it? Why can't you just lay out what happened and not try to push this idea or that idea and let the people decide? Like, I don't understand.
So
pretty much every news media did this.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think? Do you think that there's a clear way or an easy way for Trump to kind of help himself the most out of this? What would you do if you were in his situation?
Well, his freaking responses were horrible. Like, he was tweeting about Comey, like, what did he call him, a liar? What did he say? He said something right after.
Yeah. Trump's response was, well, initially he said he's proud that he was totally exonerated from all charges, and then he said, wow, James Comey's a leaker. And then he came out and tweeted again. He said, quote, I believe the James Comey leaks will be far more prevalent than anyone ever thought possible. Totally illegal, ? Very cowardly, ! So first of all, it's not illegal for James Comey to leak this stuff. He didn't leak government documents at all. He leaked his own private notes that he took during a conversation that he had with the president, and as long as nothing in that conversation or in his notes was classified, then it's not illegal to leak those things.
Right.
You know,
so the best thing
Trump
talk
about the morality of it, but
freaking tweeting.
Not tweeting. So that is, basically the same thing that we've been saying for a while.
No, I think what would be helpful for me personally if Trump came out and addressed the kind of wishy-washy parts of it, like the part of him saying that he's a good guy, maybe provide some clarity on it. You know, maybe he comes out and says, well, this is what I meant.
Or if he just come out and said, like, you know, I didn't want James Comey to perceive what I said as a direct order at all. I was thinking of it as more as a conversation You know, obviously the investigation is important to me. I want it to go forward. However, you know, I was just having a conversation with James Comey at the time, and I told him that Michael Flynn is a good guy, and James Comey agreed with me. And I just said, I hope that you can drop the investigation. Was not giving him an order at all. If he came out and said that and acknowledged that what he said might not have been of the best judgment, but saying like, look, guys, I wasn't giving him a direct order, I think that would help his case a lot.
Yeah, I think so too. And I also think if he kind of just completely left the FBI now to do what
and the special prosecutor just leave it all.
Yeah, don't try to have any more one-on meetings. Don't have the opportunity to maybe flub and say something that could be perceived multiple ways again. Just let them do their thing. You do your thing. If he's innocent, I think that he should be completely on board for that. There would be no reason for him not to do that. So I think that would be his best plan of action, is to come out and clarify some of his statements, and then also back away. Don't tweet about it, and just let them do it. Because if you're innocent, you shouldn't care how much they dig.
Yeah.
Just
start getting back on topic. Start talking about policies, what you want to do. Let the special prosecutor do his thing, and you know, hopefully can kind of blow over, and we can get back to, you know, the important things and what actually matters.
Yeah. What about you? What do you think of it?
I mean, I agree. I don't think anything's going to really come out of it. I mean, you have crazy people like Al Green saying this is clear that Trump obstructed justice. It's not. I think the special prosecutor will keep digging. I think one thing that's interesting is that the whole Mike Flynn thing, the Michael Flynn investigation, right? There's still no evidence that Michael Flynn said anything nefarious to the Russians on that phone call. So Trump is getting in trouble for saying, well, you dropped the investigation that still hasn't proven anything bad with Mike Flynn. You know what I mean?
It's even warranted.
Exactly. So it's just a lot of real rookie mistakes really on that part. And then a lot of the mainstream media fluffing up a narrative, and they're trying to present Trump in a deceitful, dishonest way, because that just gets them more views, more ratings, and all that kind of stuff. And they're going to continue to do that. But I don't think anything's going to come of it. I just hope that Trump can kind of lay low, start maybe talking about policy, start talking about the important things. And when the special prosecutor is done, then we can come out and, you know, have a discussion about it again. Yep. But until then, if there's no evidence, which there still isn't any evidence, there's no criminal charges that can be placed or anything like that. And I think it's very clear now during Comey's testimony under oath that there's no charges that can be brought against Trump criminally.
Right. Which, I mean, we've kind of been saying that for a while. It did feel like a lot of smoke, no fire situation.
Yeah.
And
currently
we're still there. I would say so, but at the same time, wouldn't be against new information coming to surface. But I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one last thing before we close, Marco Rubio was questioning, and he said, "Don't you think it's interesting that the only thing that didn't leak is that President Trump was never under investigation by the FBI?" And I think that just speaks to the leaks and all the leaks that have been happening, and how it's clearly very hostile environment towards this administration that, you know, haven't necessarily experienced that much with other administrations.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't think anything's going to really come out of it. I think it was a big deal. I'm glad that Comey testified. I'm glad that they covered it. Hopefully the information is out there. More people can kind of watch it and formulate their own opinions on the matter. And I think it's always a good thing when more information is brought to the light so that people can further educate themselves.
100%.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that is going to wrap up this week's Beyond Politics. Be sure and check us out again next week. Check out our shows, our Peanut Gallery podcast. Be sure and watch that. And then also check us out on Google Play, iTunes, and SoundCloud. Leave us a review there. And until next week, guys, stay informed.